right, you maggots, listen up. Now, I know most of you watching this video are going to say, this is really boring. This video is for someone that's going to go in on the IFs of Hallicrafters SX42. I'm going to give you a little bit more pointers, some more info. Now, you'll notice that if you get lost recapping this, try to take one cap out at a time. There's a metal tang that's cut out of this piece of metal, and on the inside it's holding the capacitor. It's holding the capacitor captive. So you're going to have to put your screwdriver up in there and get underneath that and wedge it out, and that capacitor will fall out. Put the other one in using the piece of rubber tubing that I showed you. All right. Now, if you start to get lost, realize that this is the AM side. And notice on this is IF can number 1. There's a really big coil here and a really small one. And what it'll be is the big coil resonates at 455. So does the little one. And what they're doing is they're changing the impedance, which when you hook, like when you come off a tube, you want the impedance to match the tube. So what they'll do is, or the circuit that it's going to. So you can change the amount of inductance to capacitance to get 455. So when you use less turns and a bigger capacitance, your impedance would be lower. When you use a little bit of capacitance and a big coil, that's when you have a higher impedance circuit, and you don't have to worry about the Q being messed up from the circuit. So if you get lost, do the AM side first. The AM side's got the coils with more turns of wire. All right, and in this case, right here, this is the front of the radio. This is 1, IF can 1, 2, and 3. Now you see I have those quick leads on there. Basically what I did was I removed 3 capacitors, one side, and measured it with my cap checker, which is for high voltage. 2 out of 3 are bad. The 2 that read leaky or read way off on capacitance. So we know that yes, indeed, even though it's a small value, like 47 picofarads, they go bad. That's what I wanted to tell you. I just wanted to show you. I also wanted to tell you, these are the tweezers I use. Hopefully everything's sort of focused. These are the tweezers I use. They're made in Switzerland. And I get behind the wires that are on the capacitor lead and I push them forward. But before you do that, you heat it real quick. You solder suck the extra amount of solder off that connection, off that capacitor. And you'll notice that the lead of the capacitor has been turned. And that's to keep the wires from coming off when they're soldering. So you have to find that. You have to straighten that wire out. And then these wires, which would be, one will be a wire that goes to the bottom, and a really fine wire which is hiding right here, which goes to the coil itself. And be very careful with them. And once you get that lead of the capacitor straight out, they'll want to come out. Now I use both the tweezers, and I also use an X-Acto knife, this here padded kind. And I get in there and I work it out, and the wire wants to come off that. But the trick is you have to solder suck the solder off and straighten that pin of the capacitor so it's straight out, maybe curved down a little bit. And because after they wrap the coil wire onto that capacitor and they put that terminal wire on there, they turn the lead of the capacitor to one side, and that keeps those 2 wires, the coil wire and the conductor wire, the connector wire, bottom connector wire, from coming off while they're soldering it. So by straightening that out, that's going to make it easier for you to slide those 2 wires off. And then when you put your new cap in, you're going to have to do the other side also. You force that tang back open, take your cap out, put your cap in. I showed you how to make it an axial. Put it back in there, squeeze that tang back so it holds that capacitor in position. these eyelets. These connections became eyelets. Slide them back over the thinner wire, or you're gonna have to clear them out with a pin and make sure they're big enough now to go back over the wire. I went looking for someone that's been down this road on this radio, and you get people that just shoot from the hip with an answer. Anybody that's gone inside this IF cans will tell you how crappy they're made, and they'll tell you the truth whether they've done this or not. They're going to warn you like I'm warning you. I'm going to say it's a lot harder than you'd expect. You know, someone sends you inside of one of these things. You know, in my case, I have that leak tester unit that I built, and I have a real cap checker, which I don't know if it's in the frame here. Is it in the frame? Is it hiding here? Hold on. There's my cap checker, bottom right. And I can check the capacitor two ways. And the ones that are leaking read real high in value. They read like 200 something picofarads, even though they're 47. So we know the caps go bad. They're not ceramic, they're mica. We know mica caps now go bad after 70 years. We know there's 4 of them in each IF can, except this middle, number 2, has an extra one. Go look on the schematic. That's the thing that'll help you know where you are. Number 2 IF can has a 5th capacitor. And that'll help you realize that which IF can you're on. The AM broadcasts 455s have more wires, more coils. You be very gentle with the wires. Learn how to buzz out the wires using an ohm meter on the lowest scale. All right, you got to do these things. Now, if you watch Shango 66, he doesn't like to mess with really fine coil wires, IF wires. I learned a couple tricks with them. In other words, say you break the wire. You take a thicker piece of say bus wire, and you wrap it on the connection that the little wire's got to go to, the thin wire's got to go to. You solder it, then you bring it down next to that wire that's a Litz wire or cotton covered, and you put the solder on the very tip of the wire itself, and you get it to tin. You then touch it to the lead wire that you added, and you tack solder it, and then leave it alone. You're not going to win by someone says, "Oh, just undo a turn." You don't touch these fine wires. You're asking for trouble. You're asking to go down a rabbit hole. Now, normally on an IF can for FM, they use thicker wire than they would use on the AM, but they didn't. Hallicrafters used the same, it looks like the same gauge to me, which makes it more of a nightmare to go in this. Now, I told you, Hallicrafters, the radio looks great. It sort of works good, but their construction is not made for you to repair the radio. These are modules. If one of these went bad, you'd be expected to buy it from Hallicrafters. There's no restuffing it. But if you're a radio aficionado, you know that you can't get those IF cans. And if you buy them used, they're going to be in the same condition as the ones in your radio. They might work for a while, and then they'll go bad. So, you know, I'm doing this video strictly for the guy that's really going to go in and fix this radio. And I'm going to tell you how I did it or how I'm doing it. And, you know, I'm not shooting from the hip. I know how annoying those little Litz wires are because I've wound coils. I've done toroid donuts with real fine wire. You saw me do the IF can. I had the guy tell me it wasn't going to work. I've been down the road before, you know, 72 years old, all right? I've been working on radio since I was 8 years old. And yes, when I was 8, I was doing the work that some of these guys are doing. You know, everybody's telling them they're so great. I was doing that stuff at 8 years old. And that's why, you know, I was a very poor student, but my mother and my father kept saying, if he can do this, at least he can fix radios to feed himself. And then, of course, I went and got a job at a company as an assembly worker. And having put stuff together repeatedly, thousands of units, you learn how to work with the parts, how to solder them, how to run your wires. I come up with a lot of tricks to make the job actually work. Where I worked we would get a job in, and we had a bid on it, and then the boss would give it to me, and I'd come up with a trick way of putting it together, and then he could figure out the time, and then we put a bid in, beat other people, and we would get the job. So and I had to leave there. The guy kept taking me in the office on my time. He'd make me punch out, and he'd blow smoke up my ass. I saw how he treated other people. He'd promise you the world, and then he'd mentally beat you down. Every once in a while, he'd bring you back up, but he was a control freak, and I realized that. I didn't understand really what was wrong with him, but I didn't want to be around him. And over the years, even though I didn't work there anymore, I still would help him out once in a while with a project problem. I put an alarm system on the building, using parts that he had because he was so cheap. But I've been there, done that. And this radio, yes, it is now the toughest radio I've ever worked on. Remember that BC348? That the guy cut wires and that was really hard, because normally in life, you would only see that if something was like in a car accident and you had to restore it, and a part of it got hit and cut off and wires got broke. But in the case was the guy was trying to modify the radio to put that module in, and he cut a bunch of wires, and he cut through one thing, he cut something else by mistake. He bodged it. It was a bodge job. Now this radio, nobody's been on an IF cans. And make sure you watch the last video where I show you the fish paper or wax paper between the inside unit and the outer can. And when the radio is like in a hot attic, it fuses it together. And that was one, I knew right away after the first one that something was wrong. The first one was actually was it the BFO wouldn't come apart? No, it was the discriminator. And I saw that and I'm like, okay, this is going to be doubly bad because there's two sides that can stick to the wax paper. And it turned out I was right. And I like I said, I keep reading, and I never found anybody to mention inside the IF cans. No pictures of the inside of these IF cans. And all your better radios show you, all your BC348s, your command radios, other brands that actually show you the inside of the IF can and the values. And inside the BFO and the values. Right? In this case, the Hallicrafters has the values on the schematic. And that's all you have. And then your intuition. And they didn't expect you to want to fix the IF cans. That's what it comes down to. You buy a new one. Well, as time goes on, Hallicrafters go out of business. One of your IF cans isn't peaking up right, or it's not working at all. And you're going to have to go in there. And I'm not afraid to go inside of stuff, because as a kid, I used to take this stuff apart just to kill time. I'd go get a radio out of the garbage, bring it home. My father would hang over me, and he had a TV repair shop for a few years, 2 or 3 years with my uncle. He'd hang over me, and he goes, right. I said, yeah, the volume control is bad. You get a radio in the garbage, the volume control would be bad. People would sometimes take the antenna off the back of the radio on the AM. I don't know what they were saving it for, but they would bodge stuff. A lot of kitchen radios got a fork through the speaker. The little kid would be sitting in breakfast, and I guess he'd be jealous of the radio. He'd be talking to his mother. Maybe she wasn't paying any attention to him. So he'd take a fork and put it through the speaker grill. And that was common. So you got the volume control, the speaker grill, and then what would finish the radio off and put it in the garbage is the filter capacitors would go bad, and the radio would be humming real loud. And there were people that took the tubes out, went down to the auto store, or Two Guys, or the corner drugstore, and they would test the tubes, and then they maybe get another tube, bring it home, the radio would still hum. And people would say that to me. Some old guy taught me, the reason the radio is humming is it doesn't know the words to the song. Oh, my throat. I think that's it. All right, that's it. Oh, my throat.